Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone from national statistics offices, but also from the wider national statistical system. And it's great to see so many familiar faces and names on the screen, but also to see lots who are not familiar. So that's really fantastic to have that combination of people here today. So for those that don't know me, I'm Rachel Bevan, Director of Statistics Division and Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, ESCAP. So it's my pleasure to be able to welcome you all to today's Stats Café, which is focusing on reinvigorating the SDGs through gender and inclusive data and looking at the power of networks to make that possible. So as we know, we've only got another 7 years left before that deadline to actually deliver on the SDGs, and leveraging gender data to accelerate the global goals is therefore becoming more urgent than ever. And we really do need that inclusive and granular data to make sure that we leave no one behind. But we also know that capacity constraints, lack of political commitment, and insufficient funding have often been cited as inhibitors to ensuring that all population groups are accounted for in enacting and monitoring inclusive policies. But addressing such challenges not only requires countries to make changes from within, but it's also really important that we can actually exchange knowledge and actually benefit from what's going on in other countries and look at the good experiences, the different practices that are being used across countries, not just in Asia and Pacific region, but actually around the world. So peer-to-peer learning and networking can come a long way in helping us to actually identify common problems, but also the solutions that can then be adapted and applied across very different contexts. And the gender, so we're here today really to hear as well about the Gender Data Network. The Gender Data Network was founded in 2019, and it's a joint initiative between UN Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, Data2X, Paris 21, and also Open Data Watch. The Gender Data Network was designed to really raise that standard of gender data production and to actually better link with demand and to improve the effectiveness of communications of and about gender data, but also to really encourage gender data use across. Know that it's not just enough to have the data. What's more important is actually getting the data used by policymakers. And as of April 23, the network is comprised of senior government gender statisticians from across 22 African countries. And they really joined that network because they are trying to respond to that common goal and trying to really, the common goal of trying to address better gender data, really looking as well at the issue of how do we actually get better use of that gender data. So trying to improve the production and the use of gender data within the national statistical system. So in the Stats Cafe today, we actually really want to look at the current state of gender statistics within the Asia-Pacific region. And the sessions then go to showcase innovative strategies, opportunities, and relationships that current members have built through the participation in the Gender Data Network activities in the Africa region. So it's really that opportunity to learn across the different regions. And so in the Stats Cafe, we'll also discuss the value proposition of actually expanding that network to the Asia-Pacific region and the value of the different experiences to facilitate continued professional and personal development and how it really helps to facilitate that cross-country exchange, looking particularly around things like scaling innovative data collection, analysis, and dissemination strategies. And the establishment of such a network in Asia and Pacific would really be a great step forward to help us actually with identifying common data issues, facilitating that cross-country learning, enabling better capacity building and training, and actually really helping countries to connect with the wider global gender data community. So today we've got a really great lineup of fantastic speakers, but both from the national statistical systems in Asia and Pacific, but also we're extending to hear from the Africa region as well, so that they can share their knowledge and experience on making improvements in gender and inclusive data availability, access and use. So we're going to hear today from colleagues from Data2X, Paris 21 and Open Data Watch. And they're going to moderate the discussions based on their experience on setting up and facilitating a gender data network in the African region. And I know that all of our speakers and moderators are joining from very different time zones across Asia, Pacific, Europe, Africa, and the US. So I think we're pretty much covering most regions of the world. So I want to really thank everyone for actually not just making the time, but actually making the time during some very difficult time differences. So for some, I know it's either very late or very early. So we really do appreciate your time. And I'm really confident that that will actually enable us to gain some valuable insights from today's session. And I hope it will really also help us to motivate and look at how we can actually establish a similar network to the gender network kind of in Asia and the Pacific, similar to what's being done in Africa. So that's what we're here to do today. As ever, it's really helpful if we can try and put your questions into the chat bar. Please do try and participate as much as you can. We know that often you have to kind of listen to us, but please do also ask questions when you can, but also put things in the chat bar. Hopefully everyone can join in as much as possible. But now I'm going to hand you over to Lauren Harrison, who's going to be moderating the first section of our event today. And Lauren is a policy analyst and team lead for Paris 21's Data Ecosystems team. So over to you, Lauren. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Rachel, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon to our participants and panelists. It's a real delight to get to start my day with you all today. As Rachel mentioned, I'm the Data Ecosystems team lead at Paris 21, which is the Partnership and Statistics for Development and Inclusive Data. So this is a topic really near and dear to my heart and my team's heart. And I'm really excited to get to dig into the topic that Rachel has outlined so well, really thinking about how to work together to build stronger gender data systems. And maybe a great way to start that is in our first half today, we'll talk a bit about the state of gender statistics in the Asia-Pacific region, beginning with a summary presentation of the recently conducted global review of gender statistics in the region, and then turning to some country experts for a deeper dive on experiences within NSOs and specific contexts. So without any further ado, I'm really pleased to introduce our first panelist, Sharita Sarao. Sharita is a statistician with the Population and Social Statistics section of ESCAP's Statistics Division. Over to you, Sharita, for the overview. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Good morning, good day, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen, so just bear with me for a moment, please. I hope you can see that now. All right. So I think that my slides are up on the screen now. So, so as Lauren mentioned, I will just be providing an overview of the status of gender statistics in the Asia-Pacific region. And basically, this is based on the results of the 2022 Global Review of Gender Statistics. Now, the Global Review was conducted as a global exercise in partnership with the United Nations Statistics Division, and a common questionnaire was used and implemented across all world regions at the end of last year. So for the Asia-Pacific region, 24 countries in the region responded to this questionnaire. And basically 24 countries responded to the questionnaire, and the main focal points in countries were the national statistical offices. They were asked to respond to the questionnaire and coordinate the response with relevant agencies at the national level. Now, the purpose of the global review was to understand progress in the production and use of gender statistics in countries since the time of the last review 10 years ago in 2012. It was also to understand whether and if the gender perspective is mainstreamed in national statistical systems, and to identify related good practices and challenges in countries. And at the same time, the global review was meant to understand and assess the relevance and impact of the work of the UN and partners, and to guide future work on gender statistics. So as I mentioned, 24 countries had responded. So the results that I will be presenting is based on the responses that we got from these 24 countries. And what you see here is a distribution of the responses that we got across the different subregions in ESCAP, with the highest response rate from South and Southwest Asia and East and Northeast Asia. And given that the response rate that we had was actually not from the majority of countries in the region, the results are at best illustrative, and they're not exactly generalizable. Now, firstly, in terms of the institutional setup for gender statistics, including gender statistics entities, budgets, legal frameworks, and mandates, we found that while from among the countries that responded, less than 50% had a gender statistics entity within the NSO itself, within the National Statistical Offices, whether it be a dedicated office, department, or focal point, the majority did get their budgets for gender statistics on a regular basis, either from the national budget for statistics or the budget of the national women's machinery. And almost 3/4 of the countries that responded mentioned that they have a statistics law or regulation in place, with over 50% reporting the existence of a gender equality law or regulation, and also the mandate to conduct specialized surveys on gender issues such as on violence, time use, labor force, and asset ownership. So in general, when it comes to the institutional setup for gender statistics, it seems to be in place in the majority of countries that responded, or seems to be making good progress in the majority of countries. Now, the most commonly used data sources for producing gender statistics in the region are the usual traditional ones, such as education, health, and labor administrative records, as well as a range of common household surveys and censuses. The blue bars that you see in the graph here represent the percentage of countries that have these data sources, and the green bars basically show the percentage of countries that are using these data sources to compile gender statistics. And what we have here is the top 8 sources that are commonly used in the region. But at the same time, what we saw is that non-traditional data sources such as geospatial data are yet to be adequately harnessed for gender indicators and statistics in the region, while the overall availability of non-traditional data sources is still limited in countries. Countries also reported that data sources such as financial and trade records, for instance, which are more likely to be generally available in countries, were also being less used or less commonly used to compile gender statistics. I'm not sure why that is happening. It's something that we need to find out, because these are the regular data sources which are not being used. Now, in terms of gender mainstreaming, traditional areas such as labor force, education, poverty still seem to be the most commonly produced thematic areas in countries that responded. No surprises that gender statistics in the context of emerging areas such as climate change, disaster risk, and digital violence, for instance, is still lagging behind, as you can see from the second graph with the red bars here on this slide. Now, in most cases, when it comes to the collaboration of the National Statistical Office with other entities in the country for the production of gender statistics, we found that in most cases, national statistical offices are collaborating with ministries and with international organizations on a regular basis. But, and this is demonstrated by the blue bars in this graph, but there seems to be very limited or almost no collaboration happening with other types of agencies like academia, research institutions, think tanks, or even non-governmental organizations. Collaboration in these cases seems to be at best ad hoc or non-existent. Now, the questionnaire had asked countries if they had a task force, a technical committee, or a working group for collaboration and dialogue between users and producers. And unfortunately, the results here didn't seem very good. We had just over 35% of countries reporting that they have regular dialogue between users and producers, but the majority reported that they do not have any user-producer dialogues, or at best, these dialogues are ad hoc and irregular. So quite a bit of work to be done here to ensure that existing gender data gets adequately used and that the right data is produced in the first place to meet user needs. Now, dissemination of gender statistics is still mostly happening through traditional means like publications and data portals, as you can see again from the blue bars in this graph. And we did not see much transition to using other means of dissemination, like use of data visualization or social media, for instance, still seems to be limited or non-existent. Now, based on the responses that we received, we gathered a few good practices on what has worked so far. And in cases where gender statistics have improved in countries, the most common driving factors were the existence of a regular program, as well as a strategy or action plan, the existence of legal frameworks. Also, in countries where capacity building programs already existed or training programs already existed, they seem to be doing better. And also the establishment of statistical methodologies, standards, and definitions at the national level seem to work quite well for gender statistics. However, countries reported the lack of dedicated funding, the lack of entities and coordination mechanisms as continuing impediments at the national level. They also pointed out the need for improvements in gender indicators and disaggregated data, as well as for more clarity on statistical methodology, on improving admin data sources, and also strengthening capacity for gender analysis. So all of these actually provide us clear pointers for future direction of support and technical assistance that countries in the Asia-Pacific need in the context of gender statistics. In terms of short-term national priorities that were expressed by countries, it was mostly in the context of improving disaggregated data. Some thematic areas seem to be of high priority at this point in time. That's women and the economy, time use, and gender and the environment. Quite a few countries also express that they want to prioritize improvement of dissemination of gender statistics through the inclusion of new gender indicators in publication, the development of dedicated portals, and the development of other innovative types of dissemination products. And finally, countries also identify needs related to international methodological work, including the production, use, and management of non-traditional data, the compilation of gender-relevant SDG indicators, and how to use these indicators vis-a-vis other harmonized sets of gender indicators that exist at the global and regional levels, like the global minimum set of gender indicators. So I will stop with this, and I hope this provides basically a broad overview of where things stand in the region. We're going to hear from two of our countries who will tell us firsthand on what has worked and what hasn't worked in their country setting. And perhaps that will help to explain some of the nuances that this survey did not actually explain. So thank you, and back to you, Lauren.
Thanks so much, Sharita. Indeed, I think this was a really wonderful overview to help position us in the conversation. And I already see really important parallels between experiences that have been raised actually in the Gender Data Network in Africa, but also in other work on gender statistics across our global partners. But I think your setup is perfect to move to the next panelist to hear directly from some of these countries' experiences and nuance a bit on the findings of the global review. So next, I would like to invite Ms. Wilma Gulen. She's the Assistant National Statistician and Head of the Social Sector. Gulen, okay.
Thank you, Lauren.
Head of the social.
Yeah, I will just share my slide, please. Okay, I'll just put it in presentation mode. Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. So a pleasant afternoon to all the virtual attendees to this episode of the Stats Cafe. Please join me as I share the latest efforts of the Philippines relative to gender statistics. As an outline of this presentation, I will be giving legal, institutional, and coordination mechanisms that are in place, the status of gender data and statistics and production, and the issues and challenges as well as opportunities. So among the strengths of the country on gender statistics are the legal, institutional, and coordination mechanisms that were established as follows: the Magna Carta of Women, which mandates the adoption of gender mainstreaming by all government agencies, and of course, Republic Act 10625, or the Philippine Statistical Act of the Philippines in 2003, which consists of statistical organizations at all administrative levels, and it consists of the following: a statistical policy making body, which is the PSA board, a body with primary data collection capability, that is the Philippine Statistics Authority, which is actually attached to the National Economic and Development Authority for purposes of policy coordination. Another is the Statistical Research and Training Institute, and all government offices with statistical activities as part of their primary function or as part of their administrative and regulatory functions. For the Philippine statistical system, actually created under Republic Act 10625, the following statistical coordination mechanisms exist. First is the PSA board, which is the highest policy-making body on statistical matters. The Interagency Committee on Gender, Children, and Youth Statistics, among other interagency committees created by Republic Act 10625, and the regional and provincial statistics committees. The PSA board actually prescribe appropriate frameworks for the improvement of statistical coordination and establish mechanisms for statistical coordination at the regional and local government unit levels in addition to the national level. And then it also provide technical assistance and exercise supervision over major statistical activities and recommend executive and legislative measures to enhance the development and efficiency of the system, including the internal structure of statistical agencies. So these are the statistical policies on gender and development so far. In 1994, we have enjoined different agencies to promote gender concerns in the generation of statistics. In 2001, the adoption of the statistical framework on gender and development indicator system. In 2009, the official concepts and definitions for statistical purposes for gender and development sector. And just last year, the approval and adoption of the updated core gender and development indicators. So the Interagency on Gender Statistics serves as the forum for discussion of issues and concerns raised by data producers, users, and other stakeholders on gender statistics. And the Philippine Commission on Women was strategically elected as the chair of the committee with 6 other member agencies. On the current status of gender data, there are 32 possible data sources of gender statistics classified into 3 groups. One group on existing producers of gender data, including administrative records and registers, censuses and surveys, and modules appended to an existing survey. Another group are those that are non-existent yet in the country, including Living Standard Survey, among others. And the third group is a list of existing information but not yet used for official reporting purposes, so which are citizen-generated data and so on. Now, through the years of building the gender data landscape in the country, we have created a dedicated web page on women and men in the PSA website, featuring publications and articles on women and men, a GOD database, statistical policies on gender that is approved by the PSA board, and links to regional gender webpage and related links. Also, the database on women and men in the PSA website is part of the OpenStat, which serves as PSA's window to share data that can be used, reused, and redistributed freely by anyone with proper source attribution. And we also publish a handbook on this is on the next slide. We also publish a handbook featuring 13 areas of concern, including population and families, work, economic participation, and so on. The latest inclusion of which was the Sustainable Development Goals. And there is also this publication which is dedicated on gender, on labor and employment, titled as Gender Statistics on Labor and Employment. And this aims to promote the use of gender data in the formulation of plans and programs in the monitoring of projects designed to promote gender equality in the country. And last but not least, on the status of gender statistics, the Philippines is among the 193 UN member states which committed to monitor the SDGs. And there is a specific web page as one of the features in the Philippine Statistics Authority website. There are 44 gender relevant indicators, of which 23 are global indicators, and there are also 21 achieve gender equality indicators, of which 10 of these are tier 1 indicators. Now, as to the opportunities and challenges, we are crafting actually the 2023 to 2029 Philippine Statistical Development Program, which is a twin document of the Philippine Development Plan. And chapter 24 of this is actually statistics on children and gender and development. So some of the issues and concerns, first one is the need to enhance the availability of gender statistics among government agencies. And we have included a statistical development program to formulate the guidelines in establishing and maintaining statistical gender and development database among government agencies. Another issue is the need to address data gaps in the monitoring of gender-related indicators in the SDGs. One is maternal mortality ratio, another is unpaid care work, and the third one is the proportion of girls and women who experience genital mutilation. And we have included the statistical development program of this in the PSDP, a development of methodology using the CRVS in estimating maternal mortality ratio. Another is to improve the dissemination of the result of the pilot survey on time spent on unpaid care and domestic work, and ensure institutionalization of its data collection in existing surveys like the labor force survey. And we intend to explore reporting practices of other countries on women who experience gender mutilation. Last but not least of my slide is the participation of the Philippines to international conferences and members, and we are actually a member of the IAEG on gender statistics, which aims to review and identify key initiatives and programs that support and enhance National Statistical Office's capacity to identify, produce, and disseminate relevant gender statistics. And we are also a member of the ASEAN Working Group on SDG indicators. That would be all. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Wilma. I think this was a really exciting whirlwind tour of the work in the Philippines. I know I've been inspired for a long time by the work that you and your team are doing, and just seeing a little bit of how that some of the findings, the parallels with Sharita's presentation on the really strong institutional foundation, and then these very practical entries that you've identified to continue to strengthen gender statistics in the next Philippine statistical program is really, I think, quite a useful insight. So thank you so much for being with us and for your informative presentation. We have one more panelist from the country perspective. So I'm pleased to invite Ms. Shaista Bai to the virtual floor. She's a senior statistician within the methodology unit of the Fiji Bureau of Statistics to offer the perspective from Fiji on gender statistics development. Over to you, Ms. Shaista.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lauren. Bula from Fiji. As mentioned by Ms. Lauren, my name is Shaista B. I am also one of the focal points of gender statistics in Fiji. Hence, I'm deeply honored to attend the Asia-Pacific Stats Café 2023 and shed light on the status of gender statistics and readiness to meet gender data needs for national development priorities and for the 2030 agenda in Fiji. Next slide, please. So in my presentation today, I will be providing an overview of the current status of gender data and statistics in Fiji, discuss the opportunities and challenges we face, and touch upon the potential benefits of cross-country knowledge exchange. Next slide, please. Beginning with the current status of gender data and statistics in Fiji, while acknowledging the limitations of time, I will provide a summary of the key aspects. Gender statistics and research policy is embedded into the Fiji National Gender Policy, which is managed by Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation. The same ministry recently conducted Fiji Country Gender Assessment, which provides a comprehensive report on education, leadership, violence, health, economy, environment, and cultural norms. Further to this, Fiji has a gender data hub which provides links to databases which contains data by gender. The gender data hub is managed by the Parliament of Fiji. The Fiji Bureau of Statistics also conducts regular census and surveys that collect data on various demographic and socioeconomic indicators, including gender. These sources provide valuable information on population, employment, education, health, and other relevant areas by gender. Other organizations such as Fiji Women Crisis Center collects data on gender-based violence, including domestic violence and sexual assault, and use it for reporting purposes. However, Fiji is facing huge challenges when it comes to linking these various data sets to SDG goals. One of the major challenges is definition. SDGs have specific definitions attached to each element or indicators, whereas organizations collect data based on the output it needs to achieve. For instance, SDG 5.5.1b on women's representation in local government requires number of elected positions held by women and men in deliberative bodies of local government. But for Fiji till date, these positions are appointed, not elected, hence making it difficult to report on this particular SDG indicator. Now, because gender statistics and research policy is managed by a Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation, Fiji Bureau of Statistics currently does not have its own policy or framework to guide the collection and reporting of gender statistics as well as reporting on SDG-related indicators. Therefore, Fiji Bureau of Statistics is in the initial phases of developing gender statistics framework, which would help to combat the challenges mentioned as well as contribute towards the development of SDG. Next slide, please. Moving on to the opportunities, the Fijian government has demonstrated a commitment to gender equality and the 2030 agenda. This commitment creates an enabling environment for prioritizing gender data collection and analysis to inform policy and decision-making process. Through partnership and international support, Fiji can leverage partnership with international organizations, development agencies, and civil society organizations to access technical expertise and capacity building support for strengthening gender data systems. Collaboration with these stakeholders can help enhance data collection methodology, analysis techniques, and data dissemination practices. Next is on data innovation and technology. Fiji is already into digital surveys and mobile data collection. A lot of surveys are conducted using such platform. However, with technical assistance and capacity development, more improvements can be done to enhance the timeliness, accessibility, and quality of gender data. Finally, gender mainstreaming, as mentioned earlier, data collection and surveys are already being carried out by various departments and agencies for different purposes. However, gender mainstreaming would allow the incorporation of gender perspectives into existing national statistical systems and surveys. Next slide, please. In Fiji, like many other countries, there is a growing recognition of the importance of gender data for national development priorities. However, there are various challenges that needs to be addressed to ensure the availability, quality, and utilization of gender data. Firstly, the definition, data availability and quality. The definition of gender data or statistics is not clearly understood by everyone. As a result, in some cases, gender data may be incomplete, outdated, or of insufficient quality. This lack of data and clarity on the definition poses significant challenges when it comes to monitoring and evaluating progress towards gender equality. Next is on capacity and resources. Capacity issues further impede our readiness to meet gender data needs. Limited financial resources, inadequate data infrastructure, lack of prioritization of gender statistics, and limited technical skills of statisticians and data analysts hinder our progress. Next, data disaggregation. Challenges related to privacy, confidentiality, and limited resources may impede comprehensive data disaggregation by sex and other relevant socioeconomic variables. Finally, coordination and collaboration. Collaboration between statistical agency, government departments, and civil society organizations is very minimum, which imposes huge challenges. Data is pretty much scattered all over and may also result in duplication if agencies continue working in isolation. Next slide, please. If a network of gender data statisticians and experts were to be established in the region, Fiji could benefit in multiple ways to enhance its efforts towards gender equality and effective use of gender data. Cross-country knowledge exchange allows Fiji to learn from experiences from other countries by studying best practices and lessons learned. Fiji can adopt successful strategies and approaches to enhance its own gender data collection, analysis, and utilization. In terms of technical expertise, knowledge exchange provides an opportunity for Fiji to access technical expertise and capacity building support from countries that have advanced gender data systems. Through workshops, trainings, and collaborative projects, Fiji can strengthen the skills and knowledge of its statisticians and other relevant stakeholders, improving their capacity to collect, analyze, and use gender data effectively. Methodological innovation. Exchanging knowledge with other countries can introduce Fiji to innovative methodologies and approaches for gender data collection and analysis. By learning about new survey techniques, data disaggregation methods, and data integration practices, Fiji can enhance the accuracy, relevance, and timeliness of its gender data. Data harmonization and standards. Cross-country knowledge can facilitate discussions on data harmonization and development of common standards and indicators. Fiji can learn from international practices and standards for gender data collection and align its efforts accordingly. This enables comparability of data across countries and Fiji's ability to track progress towards gender equality and the 2030 agenda. Peer support and networking. Engaging in cross-country knowledge exchange provides Fiji with opportunities to establish connections, networks, and partnerships with other countries. These connections can facilitate ongoing collaboration, knowledge sharing, and mutual support in terms of advancing gender data needs. Next slide, please. In conclusion, addressing gender data needs for national development priorities and the 2030 agenda in Fiji requires concerted efforts to overcome the challenges faced, improving data availability, quality, and disaggregation, strengthening institutional capacity, enhancing coordination and collaboration, and promoting data accessibility and utilizations are crucial steps towards achieving gender equality and sustainable development. By leveraging cross-country knowledge exchange and learning from best practices, Fiji can enhance its gender data systems and contribute to global efforts towards equality and SDGs. By prioritizing gender data and investing in comprehensive and reliable data collection, Fiji can foster evidence decision-making, monitor progress, and implement targeted interventions to address gender disparities promote inclusive development. Next slide. These are links to the resources which I have mentioned in the presentation, and that's from Fiji. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shaista. This was really an interesting an important presentation. I also noted that you mentioned specifically the importance of networks and peer learning as well, but there are lots of important insights there. Thank you very much. This concludes the first part of this Stats Cafe. So we'll move now to brief question and answer. I do see we have one participant who's raised their hand. We have a very, very packed program today. So we are asking participants to share their questions through the chat at this time, as we have a really, really tight timeline. But we really do encourage you to provide some questions. I'll just get us started very briefly. I think just particularly for Wilma and Shaista, given the state of gender statistics in your country, all the lessons you've learned, the challenges that you're currently facing, what are some topics or strategies that you would like to engage with other countries and learn from peers? Which topics or points would you like to engage with other countries on? Wilma, Shaista, would either of you be willing to come in on this point?
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Of course, participating in the IAG on gender statistics would help us actually in learning of the efforts in the other countries. But as I have mentioned earlier, among our challenges are actually on the generation of unpaid care work, although we have already started to pilot collecting this in one of our surveys, the Labor Force Survey. Also, how other countries are actually estimating the proportion of girls and women who experience gender mutilation, because as of now we are actually making a lot of progress, because the next thing that we are forwarding in our country is the establishment of a gender database in all government offices, and soon we have already formulated some guidelines, and then we will be bringing back to we will be bringing this to the PSA board, the highest statistical policy on statistical matters, for the approval, so that we can disseminate and somehow enforce, quote unquote, the generation of gender data in other government offices in the country. That would be all, Lauren. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Wilma. I really appreciate it. I think that really highlights as well how multidimensional really the development of gender statistics is. It's about building better governance frameworks and frameworks for cooperation and coordination with other entities in government. It's about new methods and techniques. It's about joining international conversations as well. There's really such a rich ground for exchange and peer learning. I think that's a really helpful response and context reflection from the Philippines perspective. Shaista, would you like to add any points in relation to peer learning from your experience?
Thank you, Ms. Lauren. Okay, I've mentioned about we are in the process of developing a gender statistics framework. We have identified this when we were collecting data for SDG database development. So we actually have identified a lot of challenges under coming to a framework which talks on gender statistics. So at the moment, I think that's something we need to work on.
Thanks so much. I think that that's actually a really important insight as well from the perspective of planning. And I see a lot of countries across regions really trying to figure out the best approach to integrate a gender perspective in planning and establishing a really strong framework. I think that's a great point. And maybe this is a nice link as well. We have one question in the chat. I was curious if either of you have had experience making the case for a budget for gender statistics, because of course, having it in the program, having a framework in place, this is an important first step, but then having the resources to really realize the plan and the framework is another experience entirely. So I wonder if either of you could offer a reflection on budgeting for gender statistics.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Shaida. Actually, 5% of the budget of government offices has to be spent on gender-related concerns. So that is enshrined in our budgeting, formulation of budget every year. Actually, agencies are required to submit by the Philippine Commission on Women the gender-related activities that they have, and to determine whether the amount is spent on gender-related activities meets the 5% that is mandated by the General Appropriations Act. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wilma. A great example, and I think another really interesting point as well of how gender statistics connect with other rules and efforts toward gender mainstreaming more broadly in government. The example you just gave is a great one. That's really important, and I think we can all learn from tapping into those existing mandates and frameworks as well. Shaista, do you have a reflection on budgeting?
Actually, because of this provision in the General Appropriations Act, not only central offices, but also local government units, they are asking for, and regional offices, they are asking for they call them seminar training on gender-related concerns, including gender-based budgeting. So it's really becoming very, very popular for all government offices, particularly to meet the 5% of the budget to be allocated for gender-related activities. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Wilma. I do see some other questions showing up in the chat. And I encourage our panelists to continue to respond to those questions directly in writing in the chat. It would be, I think, the right time now to transition to the second half of our program. For that purpose, I'm really happy to hand the floor to Krista Jones-Baptista, the Executive Director of Data 2X, to moderate the next section of the event. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Lauren, and thank you to our esteemed colleagues from the Asia-Pacific region. It is my pleasure to moderate the second section of our event, and I'd like to start by giving the floor to Miriam Uyahia, the Gender Data Network Coordinator at Paris 21. She'll be giving us a brief overview of the Gender Data Network. So over to you, Miriam.
Thank you, Krista. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you today. So let me share my slides. So I'll be talking today about the Gender Data Network. I'm trying to make it full screen. Bear with me. Let's start like that. So the Gender Data Network, as Rachel mentioned a bit earlier, is an initiative that was launched in 2019 between the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Data 2X, and Open Data Watch, and Paris 21 joined the group as the secretariat in 2021.
Miriam, can you put it in the...
Yes, I'm sorry. Let me, this thing, oh yeah, let me do that, yeah. All right. Oops. Yeah, so the Gender Data Network is basically a network of senior government gender statisticians. And currently we have 22 African countries who are part of the network. And so what are we trying to do? We try to improve the production and the use of gender data within national statistical system by raising the standard of gender data production, also improving the effectiveness of communication of and about gender data, and encouraging gender data use across participating countries. So how do we do that? We try to connect our members to the broader global data and gender equality communities. We strengthen the capacity of members by fostering gender data expertise, facilitating cross-country learning, capacity building and training. And we also ensure that our members are aware of the latest methodology to close common gender data gaps. So some example of past activities. One that members really appreciated was multi-day trainings on gender statistic communication and gender data visualization. We also have regularly technical gender data experts meetings. Those are online, of course, even the multi-day training. So we go through diverse topics that are of interest for our members. We also try to hold in-person meetings because we think that the in-person connection is very relevant and allows for facilitating further the online connection after that. So due to COVID, we only had 2 in-person meetings, one in Ghana in 2019, and the last one was in Nairobi in 2022. So we also encourage our members and give opportunities, I must say, to our members to participate in high-level events such as the UN World Data Forum, the Global Forum on Gender Statistics, and other events by international partners. We also have a monthly email digest, and this gather relevant information in gender data and statistic development for members, and members appreciate that. So, benefit to members. To summarize, so the members are part of the community for peer exchange, and they can share their challenges and solutions with gender statistics. They also are highlighted in high-level events that I just mentioned. And also, we give our member opportunities to engage with the gender data global community, as well as the media, civil society, and decision makers in their regions. And also, as I said, members attend targeted trainings that are relevant to their day-to-day work. So what will be the topics that we're planning to cover in 2023? Use of inclusive data for policy action. We're also going to continue with data communication and dissemination, capacity development, and so with a strong focus on gender focus. And also, we're going to continue with building inclusive data strategy and national statistical system, and of course, methodological innovation sharing. And we have a new data and technology series. We have an event on Thursday that will. This series is to focus especially on technical issues, and we will learn with our member how to use Power Platform and Power BI for gender data analysis and visualization. So for more information, I have those links for you, and without further ado, I'll pass it back to Krista. So we have a GDN platform, so I invite you to go and check. We put a lot of resources there. And yeah, Krista, back to you. Oh, also, no, sorry. We also published a report, Advancing Gender Data and Statistics in Africa, and I would really encourage you to go and have a look. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Miriam, for that overview of the Gender Data Network and some of the benefits of joining and some of the ways that we're working together across the network. I'd like next to introduce our panelists who will be sharing their own experiences about how networks like the GDN have helped them improve gender data collection, analysis, and use. We're joined today by Carolyn Gatwiri Mutwiri, statistician at the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, Gloria Akoto-Bamfo, principal statistician from Ghana Statistical Service, and last but not least, Emma Fiery, gender specialist at the Zambia Statistical Agency. So thank you for joining us at such an early hour in the morning. I want to start our discussion today by asking all of you the same question. Reflecting on recent events to facilitate cross-country exchange and build technical skills, how has being a member of the Gender Data Network benefited you personally and professionally? You each have 5 minutes to respond. And let's start with Caroline and then go to Gloria and Emma. So Caroline, over to you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Krista, for giving me the floor. And then hello, everybody, from wherever you're joining us from. Very much excited to be here, and I hope I'm audible enough. So I'll just highlight, several benefits being a member of Gender Data Network. There are quite a lot, but I'll just pinpoint on key ones. So first of all is, the network definitely just connects us to a wider global community that focuses on gender data, to be specific, just enabling a lot of cross-country learnings. And for example, personally, I learn a lot from Zimbabwe. We really exchange so much, maybe on what they do in terms of gender-oriented products. Another example is Kenya and Botswana, whereby the member from Botswana, we exchange a lot on when they wanted to start, or guidance on how to establish a gender unit. So I've been able to share how our structure is, among other things. There's a lot on capacity building through the network. Miriam has mentioned a few of them, but I'll quickly just go through what I feel personally I've really benefited from. So several trainings that are organized by GTN. And for example, the data visualization training that occurred in 2019, whereby we were able to learn how to tell great stories, using data. So how I practically use this is through the production of several products. For example, the Women and Men booklet in Kenya in 2022, whereby we got lots of feedback that it was a better version compared to what was there. And currently being the team lead for publicity and advocacy for the DHS 2022, I've been able to use what I've learned through the training on visualization to enhance the products for that. So Miriam also mentioned about, several webinars and high-level events. Personally, I participated in the 8th Global Forum on Gender Statistics, as well as also the UN, World Data Forum, whereby I was sharing, a session on the system-wide approach to health data from an NSO perspective. There was some reports that were done through the GTN on how to focus on gender data gaps. Kenya was one of the beneficiaries from that, and we got to, understand where some of the gaps as a country in terms of gender statistics, what can we improve on? And this has really greatly assisted us in how we structure several of the programs or activities as an NSO. There's also a mention of the gender data platform, whereby members were able to, a very good hub of resources, and whereby we're able to learn from each other, raising issues, solving what to go through. And then the coordinator as well religiously shares every month, what's happening through the monthly updates. And this enables us to learn globally on what's happening and just to keep us, up to speed. There's also the element of increased visibility from an individual, from an individual perspective, whereby KNBS in general, through a few of the media articles. For example, I was able to be featured on a report that was done on making sure that women are counted in Kenya. That was in 2020 by Upworthy. So this sort of just puts, individuals on the global map as a technical, person in terms of gender statistics. But most importantly is the push, or the network that just supports us in terms of the overall ability to push for change. And this is very good because it just gives us confidence on how we address or push for gender issues in our organization. In 2019, we were able to do the COVID tracker survey, but the first phase did not really have a lot of gender dimensions in it. So I was able to push for that. And for the second phase, we had a lot of, analysis done from a gender perspective. This also includes the publication that came forward to it. So those are just a few of the highlights on how I've been able to personally just benefit from this, being a member of the network. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for those really tangible examples. Gloria, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice to meet you, and I'm happy to be part of this discussion. I must say it's been a wonderful journey being part of the GDN network, in that putting it, I've had a lot of collaboration. So being part of the GDN, it has given me the opportunity to collaborate with other professionals, researchers and policymakers who share common interest in gender data. And I must say this collaboration has fostered an exchange of ideas, knowledge sharing, and the development of innovative approaches to help address some of the gender gaps and challenges. And I make reference to the first in-person meeting that was held in Accra in 2019. That was the very first meeting. And this gave an opportunity. It was a back-to-back meeting, the regional level meeting and the national meeting. And the national meeting brought on board local actors, participants from Ghana, and they came to realize the need for this collaboration. And since then, I've had engagements with some line ministries, such as the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. Currently, we are working on how to improve their admin data collection system. Some other line ministries like the Ministry of Employment, we all work together. And even within the NSO, the Ghana Statistical Service, I've been able to bring along we have a women network group, and from time to time, I share some of the experiences with them. And also with regards to learning and capacity building, I might say I've benefited a lot from the workshops, seminars and training programs that have been done both in person and online, which has been organized by the network in a bit to enhance capacity of its members in areas such as gender analysis. And recently I've been able to incorporate some of what I've learned into the writing of the reports of the gender analysis from the census reports of Ghana, a thematic report on women and men. It's currently being edited, and I'm looking forward for it to be reviewed and passed on for publication. So I brought some of my knowledge to bear in the preparation of this report. And also with regards to access to resources, I've been exposed to a lot of resources that is shared at the end of every month. It gives a wider scope from all angles, whereby you have articles such as research papers, examples of reports, databases, where you can read and tap into it. And this is done every month. And I must give a thumbs up to the coordinator who has been doing this. And this has helped to broaden my scope of knowledge. And also, it also gives me the opportunity to give some of the, refer some of my colleagues to have a look at some of these articles, to read, to expand their knowledge on gender issues and all that. And with regards to knowledge sharing, we've had the opportunity to share our experiences, especially on citizen-generated data methodology that we're using to collect data on gender-based violence here in Ghana. And through the network, we've had an opportunity to share on 2 wider platforms, the 2021 World Data Forum, which gave us opportunity to share what we've done with the wider global world. And I must say people have expressed interest and they are looking forward. Currently, we are scaling up to more districts, and other countries are looking up to us to see the results and see if they can also use the same approach. Also, at the 8th Global Forum on Gender Statistics, we're also given the opportunity to share some of these experiences. So being on this network has really helped a lot, and it's gone a long way to help address some of the issues and also expand the knowledge base on the work. So if I would like to end here for now on some of these highlights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria, for those highlights. And last but not least, over to you, Emma.
Thank you so much, Krista, for giving me this opportunity. Hello, everyone. With me, I would say that I've actually benefited a lot being a member of GDN, personally and even professionally. And this is because it has given me an opportunity of mixing with my fellow experts coming from across the globe. So because of this, there's actually an interchange of experiences, ideas, and not forgetting even the challenges which are country specific. So with those challenges which are country specific, they've really helped me to think outside the box on how best or to bring in the face of Zambia, where we are and how I can overcome those challenges. Then professionally, it has made me grow. It has made me grow in that, it is a board of knowledge which has kept on sharpening my skills. It has built capacity in that each time there's a new topic on board, which will also help me improve in how I conduct my statistics business. So for instance, I benefited greatly on how to communicate gender statistics to the media personnel or journalists. So out of that training I attended, I was able to organize a one-day workshop in Zambia for media personnel to take them through that they cannot work alone. They need to work with a statistician, they need to work with a gender specialist in order for that journalist to write a story or article that is evidence-based. Because we were telling them that gender data or gender statistics are very, very important when it comes to evidence-based policies, decisions, many more. Then another benefit which I can also allude to is that it has given me an opportunity. It's an ongoing opportunity where I'm always sitting on panels. This is not the first panel I'm sitting on, and I know it's not the last one. It's because of me being a member. So it is indeed a very, very good opportunity or a positive impact of me being a member on this. I've attended several, both in-person or virtual workshops or trainings like of course, I didn't attend the Ghana one, but that was an eye-opener for me. It gave me a lot of work to see how best I was going to fit in. And through the virtual meetings, it helped me. Then the first one I attended was the one we had last year in Nairobi, the regional meeting. So even at the regional meeting, there was a board full of nothing but statistical knowledge, which really helped me come back again to improve better on how I do things. Allow me to mention that, like I've already mentioned, that being a member of GDN, it has given me confidence. Early this year, I was part of a panelist discussing how gender gaps can be abridged vis-a-vis SDGs. For any information, I'm one of the people who have actually guided the writing of the National Voluntary Review on SDGs report for Zambia, which will be presented in July in New York. So I'm able to do all those things because of the knowledge I've acquired from this important data network. But however, even if I've shared those good practices, we still have challenges. So as a statistical office, the challenge we have is the issue of visibility. And this is because for change, people time and again, people are very hesitant to new things on how we do things. Because as a statistical office, bringing in the national statistical system, we work with different line ministries, especially those doing data collection using administrative records. You would tell them to do, no, this is how we are supposed to do it. And the other thing is because now we have the new law, which compels everyone to work with the statistical office. So even that one, coupled with the knowledge I've acquired and I've continued to acquire from this important network, I'm able to advise them. But the visibility is still a challenge. But even if it's a challenge, I haven't gone to sleep or haven't gone to sleep. We are still pursuing, pushing the agenda forward. But my experience, in one word, I would describe it as it has been an awesome journey.
Thank you so much for the wonderful insights, Emma, and the ways that this has impacted you and your professional journey. I have one more question, and thank you so much again for sharing your experiences. In 1 minute or less, could I ask each of you to describe your experience with GDN? So building on what you have said so far, but quick, 1 minute or less. So we'll start with you, Emma, and then go to Gloria and then to Caroline.
To be honest, I would describe my experience with GDN to be so good so far so good, and looking forward to more interactions, especially in-person meetings, and if possible, be rotating the countries, not just Kenya every time. We can even go northeast of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Gloria, to you.
Yes, I must say it's been a lot of learning, broad networking, joining this group, and it's given me the opportunity to widen my scope. I've had the opportunity to network with other members, made friends, and all that. And I'm looking forward to more engagements in the future, more especially now that we're trying to broaden up the scope to see what they also have and, move on this is as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Caroline.
My experience has been quite a fantastic journey, pretty much insightful, a lot of learning, a lot of unlearning and relearning as well. So, looking forward to scaling or expanding the initiative in a global perspective, to new members, new countries, new regions. Yeah, that is what you're looking forward, I believe, as the GDN members. And, lastly, thank you so much to Paris 21, Data to X, UNECA, and ODW for this initiative. So good work. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you one last time for this panel and for your insights and energy that you've brought to the discussion. At this time, I'd like to ask people to put their questions in the chat. And then if I can ask the panelists to take a look at those and answer in the chat as well. As we begin the next section of this event, I'll hand over to my colleague, Shada Badi. Shada is the Managing Director of Open Data Watch, and she'll be sharing some exciting developments and next steps for the GDN. So over to you, Shada.
Thank you. Thanks, Krista. And thanks also to our outstanding speakers from GDN and also from Asia-Pacific region, from Philippines and Fiji. Really interesting presentations so far. And I'm so glad to be joining you all for this session. As you've heard from the conversation so far, the GDN is an exciting group of amazing gender data, focal points, experts, and leaders. And we are very much excited about the opportunity to facilitate even more cross-country and cross-regional exchange. We hope that some of you would be interested to join the GDN, and of course, we will be reaching out shortly with more information about that. We are looking forward to an ambitious and exciting phase for the GDN and are planning on a few key activities in the near future. First, as Miriam also mentioned, we already in the earlier presentation, we will be continuing to provide opportunities for hands-on capacity building through workshops and expert consultations. And the topics that we would select, of course, would be very much depends on the demand of what the members are interested in. But the topics not only would include technical topics, but would also include data visualization, communication, how to build advocacy, and as you heard from Emma, how to communicate even with journalists and with non-technical members that we need to communicate with. Second, one of the key goals of the GDN, which was reflected in the panel area, is to raise the profile of our members. We want you to have opportunities to share the innovative and exciting things that you've been doing in your countries and network, and share it with other leaders in the data space. You heard from Gloria and also from Caroline that how important this has been for their country and also for their team and themselves individually. For that, we are looking into opportunities for members to participate in and contribute to gender data, international, regional conferences and forums, and in many forums we've already been, but we're planning for more activities. And lastly, one of the key areas that we're working on, which I know is very exciting and very important for your region, is the linking of the data to policy making and facilitating data use. We know that our diverse membership includes excellent examples of strategies, tools, templates, and examples of how to encourage and facilitate data use. So we want to collect all that you have developed and all the members know of the best practices that you have. We are confident that this will be an evergreen resource for our current and future members to make sure that we can all learn from the great work done that you have done. So let's hear from you. We want to design this new program for the future of the GDN. We want to hear some of your ideas. So let me also introduce my colleague, Jahanara Saeed, who's going to be conducting a polling question. We have 2 questions for you. So I'll hand it over to Jay to explain the questions. Jay, can I ask you to go over the questions?
Sure. So thank you all so much for joining us and for staying on as we're running a little over. So as you can see, I've launched a poll. So the first question is really to get a sense of what kind of activities are most interesting to you. So one option is participating in those capacity building workshops we just discussed. And then the second is participating in and contributing to conferences and forums. And the other is contributing to a compendium of good practices on data use. The second question that we have is, based on your portfolio, which of the following activities do you want to learn more about? We have a few options, and please feel free to select all that apply. That includes gender data collection, including designing surveys and using citizen-generated data, gender data visualization and analysis, advocating within your institution to prioritize gender data collection, analysis, and use, and then connecting gender data to policymaking. I know we've had about a minute. I will give folks a few more seconds to respond. So if you're thinking through your answers, now is the time to share.
Yes, and this would really greatly help us with the design of the program for future. We've heard a lot from the global review that Sherita's excellent presentation on the global review gave us a lot of perspective on areas, for example, on the link of the users to producers dialogue, the capacity for gender data analysis and visualization, and also developing dedicated portals and many other areas that also hear from our colleagues in Fiji and Philippines. But if you can give us your responses, that would be great. We're particularly interested on the question 1 to see if there are interest to see, oh, that's very good. We see interest in capacity building, of course, traditional, that's very good, and through workshops, participating in, we have 25% participating, contributing to conferences and forum, and 25% on the compendium of good practices. That's excellent. Thank you very much. And any results on question number 2, Jay? Not yet?
Yes, it should be showing in the same screen, but if it's not visible, I can share that 44% of actually the 69% of respondents have said that gender data visualization and analysis is the top choice, followed by gender data collection. And then we have connecting gender data to policymaking and then advocating within your institution. So sounds like there's a lot of consensus around the types of topics that folks are interested in learning more about.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. This is really useful for us. And we will be working and coming back to you with more information on how to join the Gender Data Network. So let me close this section and also hand it back over to Rachel for her closing remarks. And thanks again to all of you for joining this event. And thanks for the ESCAP and Sharita and Rachel to your team. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And as ever, of course, with a good Stats Cafe, we run over time. But thank you so much to all of the speakers, but especially to those who had to get up very early or stay up very late. So we do really appreciate it. And thank you so much as well for sharing all your kind of knowledge and experience. It really is helpful to actually hear, from people who've been engaged in this work about what some of the kind of common issues are. We heard about things like definitions and frameworks, but then also we heard about some different experiences, and it's great as well to get those really practical examples of things which are being done, like in the Philippines, the work on gender budgeting. And it's great to be able to actually really share across Africa and Asia-Pacific countries. So we do really appreciate that opportunity. Thank you so much to those countries which are already participants in the Gender Data Network, and we really hope that we can now expand that network to some of the countries in the Asia-Pacific region, because I think we've heard so much today about what the benefits are from that. And as Shade has pointed out, we want to really look at how we can establish that gender data network in this kind of region, but really to actually create that network which we could see is operating so well across the African countries. So we hope that we can carry on working with all of you, and that we can raise the profile of this work, not just in individual countries, but also really across the region. And this is very much, as we've heard already, is it the platform and this whole network, it's really your network. And it really is something that we need to hear from you about what you want it to be able to do and what the priorities are. So thank you as well for participating in the polling earlier. So we will be in touch very soon with the heads of your offices with a proposal on how we want to set up the Gender Data Network in Asia and the Pacific. And we hope that you can also talk to your bosses about that work as well, and really share with them what you have about how positive it has been. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody, not just the speakers, but also to all of you participants. Thank you so much as well for all the questions in the chat. We're trying to make sure that those were all answered, and we will definitely be getting back to you to hear more about what you think the network could be focusing on in the next few months and years ahead. So it just remains to say a huge thank you to everyone, and bye for now. Thank you so much, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.